Hey, thanks for joining us today for At the Well with Curtis. So excited to talk about how to share the gospel and what Curtis does when he's out there volunteering. Yeah, we definitely form opinions that typically have nothing to do with the interactions we have with that person.
Right.
I literally just had a phone call with somebody who, one of the people that work with us said, this guy came over yelling at me. And so I called him, I said, why are you yelling at our people? And he said, I wasn't yelling at them.
Right.
So you take a Missouri farm boy hick, and you take a California educated engineer, and you put them together, and instantly
that's not a conversation that works.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Even though he literally was just asking for help.
Yeah. I'll make it even worse. Take a New York City, because New Yorkers are loud, brash, bold, and it's not going to work with a guy from Missouri. You know? When I got there, I realized, man, they're loud, number one, and I picked it up. But they're brash, they're bold. It's like we're New York City, so, you know, we're the best.
Yeah, and you got, how else could you be heard?
Yeah. And so, yeah, I could see that for sure. Because when I first got there, it was like, ooh, I don't know if I like these people.
Yeah.
Actually, nice people. It's just you're in New York City. And really, upstate New York, I think any big city in New York, you're fighting to be heard a lot of times. And so they come off aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And, you know, does it happen in church? Yeah. You know, it happens all the time in church. You know, they always say you never can make a second, what is it? Something about you can't undo the first impression.
Yeah.
And so first impressions are so important. That's true to a certain extent, but my first impression of you may be horrible for any number of reasons. And then I get to
probably well deserved.
Well, maybe. But then I get to knowing you, and I say, oh, he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. You get old, you start rethinking stuff like that, and it's just like, I mean, first impressions, are they important? Yeah, but a first impression is not necessarily 100% accurate.
Yeah.
You know, and so
well, you think about it in terms of dating. The way that you present yourself on a first date is nothing like the way that you present yourself on your 39th anniversary.
You got your best foot forward on your first date, your second date, your third date.
Yeah.
You know, your 39th anniversary, which your parents hit this year and we hit this year. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to hide anything. I mean, I'm not trying to pretend about anything. It's like, hey, you want this? Nope. But, yeah, it is totally different. But, you know, you look at Scripture and it talks about judgment and try and think where it's talking about judging correctly. But we judge incorrectly so often. Yeah. You know, and I'm sure about 3 o'clock in the morning I'll go, that was that passage. I'll have to look it up in a minute. But we just do that. That's just the way we are. And especially if, new situations. I always hated the first day of anything. Today was my first day back as chaplain in the hospital. That was about one of the few things I was looking forward to the first day. Usually if it's the first day of something,
you love chaplain.
Yeah, I did.
Why haven't you been doing it?
Oh, boy. This is my third shift. I first did it when Dennis Smith was chaplain here. And that was different because there you just basically on the weekends you'd hold a buzzer. Not buzzer, what do they call it? Pager. And, you know, he had the weekend off. And so if something happened, they would page. You answer it. They know you've got the page. You get it and call them up. Okay, it's been an accident or whatever.
Yeah.
You go down. So that was a different story. Now, the second shift, Dennis went to Omaha, I think. And the second shift was when they had Chad. And with Chad, it was totally different. Chad, you're going in the rooms visiting people, like, I did today.
Yeah.
Starting at nursery or maternity ward and going all the way down to surgical outpatient surgery. And you're just popping in and introducing yourself and telling them who you are. And a lot of people say, you introduce yourself. I'm Curtis. I'm one of the volunteer chaplains from the spiritual care department. I just popped in to see if there's anything we can do for you. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I'm, get ready to go in. I need some prayer. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with me. I need some prayer. Or you just strike up a conversation about anything. One of the things I found that works well is when I ask, where are you from? Because everybody assumes that I don't know where they're from. Not knowing I've been around here forever. So, like, they'll say, I'm from Winnigan, because I've had this one. In fact, I met a guy today from Winnigan, and I said, between 11 and 6 on 129, I think it is. He was like, how do you know Winnigan? And when Richard Nations was still here, I remember meeting a lady at the hospital. She said Winnigan. I told her where it was. I said, you remember a family, or you ever meet a family there called Nations? She said, yeah, I used to buy strawberries from them. So when I saw Richard again, I was talking to him about it. But it's amazing. You get in there and people, last time I had a procedure was earlier this year, just scope. But they still put you to sleep, right? All right. I'm thinking, if I don't wake up, good. But they're having a procedure. They're going to be out in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And, man, people get nervous. They get, anxious about that whole thing. And so a lot of times it's just there's somebody in there and is willing to pray with them. Because, doctors and nurses, they've got a whole bunch of people get ready to go into surgery. They don't have time to necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's not their job particularly to pray with you. But when you go down as a volunteer chaplain, that's my job. Mm-hmm. So you get to talking and, you can tell they're anxious. The former chaplain, Chad, used to always say, people take you where they want you to go. And so I'll start talking to you, and you'll head down this trail. I may ignore it, but then you'll go down the trail again. Okay, that's what he wants to talk about then. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how many people who look like, especially guys who look like, I could beat the world. I could go tackle a bull myself, pick up a cow. I'm going in for a 45-minute, hernia operation or something. And they're terrified.
Yeah.
And so just being there.
Well, there's, whenever you have the hope of knowing that you have a relationship with God, then the only thing that you could make you anxious would be what would happen to my family.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because I know what's going to happen to me.
Yep.
And so I don't have that anxiety that you have. But most people who don't have that intimate relationship with God feel that exact way.
Yeah. And that could be a non-Christian who doesn't have an intimate relationship with God. And they feel the same way. They feel that anxiety.
Yeah. And
so you get a lot of chances to talk with people like that. Other people are just kind of down. I've been here. They don't know what's wrong with me. They can't figure it out. Or I've been here, and they're treating whatever this was, and it's still not working. So I'm going to be here a little while longer. And it doesn't take long in the hospital before you just start feeling a little blue.
Yeah.
And so the great thing about that is that you can go in, and it might just be a few minutes, but you get a chance to kind of encourage people and,
Great opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. If you work out in the world, you got opportunities every day to talk to people. Well, I have to make them, because otherwise I'm sitting there with my headphones on, writing, typing, or, something.
Sure.
And so I have to actually make them. And so for this one, as a volunteer chaplain, it makes me step out of my comfort zone. And every room is a different room, because I just had a great conversation with you in this room. The next guy, he's got a wall up 10 feet thick. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested, which is fine too. I'm not there to push anything. I'm there to, from the hospital's perspective, to provide a service to them if they need it. from a spiritual perspective, I'm there to represent Christ.
Does the hospital encourage it? I mean, are they excited to have your presence?
Oh, yeah.
The nurses, doctors,
they
administration?
When they started reaching out to us guys, and they were saying, at COVID, everything fell apart, and that's been something they've been missing. Like today I got there and I saw 4 people who knew me from the years that I was there, because I was there like 7 years.
Right.
And so, you guys are back. Yeah, that's good. Up on maternity, 4th floor, down in surgical outpatient, there was 2 people who knew, from the past. So it's like they're glad because, again, he's anxious. What's the best they can do? Give him something for anxiety, But that may or may not help.
Yeah, well, it may temporarily help.
Yeah, temporarily help. Yeah, sure. So you've got us guys, we go in and we get that opportunity to talk. And like I said, they take you where they want you to go, or where they want to go. So you just follow them. And a lot of times you haven't done anything, but they're happy that you stopped by just to listen. So I was like, cool.
Yeah.
So
one of the things we talked about on Sunday was love your enemies. But one of the things that is implied there, and we have this misconception, maybe it's not a misconception. We have this conception as Christians that we're supposed to just love everybody.
Right.
Love everybody equally.
Right.
It's all love.
Yeah.
One of the things that's cool about what you're doing is you're showing love in what you're doing. But I think that the reason I call it a misconception is because oftentimes we confuse what love actually is. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times what we think of love is affirming and accepting everything about somebody.
Right.
And the really cool thing about what you're doing is you don't know why they're there. You don't know how they got there. You're just there.
Yeah, right.
You're present. You're with them. You're showing God's love and kindness to them.
Darren made that point yesterday, the world's viewpoint. Remember, he gave the illustration from 2 views. One, the guy sees something on his phone, he closes up, walks away. The other one, he sees something on his son's phone, and he goes and he confronts him about it.
Yeah.
And the first one, the world will say was love. The second one, the Bible will say was love, confronting him with his actions and, trying to get him to see the error of his way and helping him that way. And so, the world's view about what love might look like is totally different. What we're doing down there is just loving by being present. Mm-hmm. And it may lead to fruitful conversations. It may lead to what seems like menial conversations. But who knows where God's going to use that nonetheless. I can remember going down one time and talking to a lady on like Monday, because I go in on Mondays. A lot of people coming over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Little different census that they give you now, who's in, what room, blah, blah, blah. It's a little different from it used to be, but you could look on there and see when they came in. And so you just came in Sunday night. There's another guy who's been here a month, so you need to check in on the people who just got there and find out who needs to know you're here. You have a church? Yeah. Do they know you're here? I don't know. Would you like me to let them know? Sure. And so that's happened a lot of times. And then, you want to go back and check on that guy who's been there for a month. How's he doing? Because, I've been here a month. I'm never getting out of this joint. He's discouraged or she's discouraged. Yeah. She's frustrated. I've been here. They're just taking my money, Oh, they're trying to figure out what's wrong, but it's not always easy. Mm-hmm. So, or they've got it figured out. It's just that your body's not responding.
It just takes time, yeah.
Yeah. So you get those 2 extremes. I just got here. There's some needs there. I've been here forever. There's some needs there. And so either way, you get to be there. And from the hospital perspective, you're providing another level of patient care. From the spiritual perspective, you're there representing Christ, getting to be him on ground, if you will. You know, you read about all these things he did in the pages of Scripture. Okay, you get to act out the pages of Scripture in the sense that, you know, here's a problem, and you're there. And so for me, I really can tell you why I really enjoy it, but I do, because it's all cold calls in a sense. You know, unless they ask for you to come, it's like a cold call. Knock on the door, you walk in, you introduce yourself, tell them who you are.
How often do people that you do that for, how often do they just say, I'm not interested, leave?
Oh, it happened today.
Yeah.
You know, what floor is on? Fourth floor. And I knock on the door, and it's like one of my last ones up on the fourth floor. And I explained who I was and everything, and he says, no, I'm okay. Okay, cool. You know, I'm not there to force myself on him. You know, and sometimes you get those, and people call you back, or they'll like speak to the nurses and say, you know, when a chaplain's in again, I want to talk to him. That kind of stuff happens. But I started telling about a lady one time. I talked to her on Monday, and she had just got there, I think, on like Sunday, and we started talking, and you know, got a chance to share a little bit of the gospel with her. Next day, it was Tuesday, Richard Nations went in and led her to Christ. Then she said, I'd like you to get that guy who was here yesterday. And so I went back to see her. Lo and behold, long story short, Ben and I went to see her, I don't know, multiple times before she passed away. She went home. And so we were able to go to her house, talk to her. We met her daughters, you know, grown. One of them lived in Kirksville. The other two were from somewhere else. I think one from Illinois, and I don't know what else. But nonetheless, we got that chance to go over and minister to them. In fact, Ben took his guitar one time and sang a little bit. So you don't ever know what's going to happen, good, bad, or different. And like I said, I really can't tell you why I enjoy doing it, because it is, you know, cold call every time. It's, well, I guess Edward Jones guys start, you know, they knock on doors,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. But they're offering you a financial product that will help you. I'm not offering them a product.
Well, you certainly are offering a product.
That's true. That is true.
Maybe the most important product.
Yeah, true, an eternal product, yeah.
But we often don't think of ourselves as salespeople, right? I mean, that's not our job as to go out. But in a certain sense, we are. We should be living proof of the product.
Right. We're absolutely representatives of, if you will, the product of Jesus and his life-changing ability. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, our job after we become believers is to go out and create disciples. And you get that opportunity in a place where people are extraordinarily vulnerable.
Right, yeah.
And accepting way more than another area. But ultimately, it's our job, whether it's easy or whether it's hard.
To go.
And we'd go. And for most of us, it's inside of our work.
Yeah.
Or with our kids.
Right. Or kids' sports teams.
You know, it's interesting. Whatever. You said something earlier that I think is really interesting is your whole job is to share the gospel with people. That you've been called to that. That's what you do on a daily basis. That is your mission and your job. And it's so easy for you not to get an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Yep. So you have to, a lot of pastors join things like Rotary, because that gives them that opportunity to be around people. And they get involved in some kind of club or whatever, because that gives them an opportunity. Rotary, great place, not interested. You know, only club I could think of is honestly Train Club. And I keep saying, I'm going to go down, and I still haven't done it yet. But the hospital is mine, where I get to go in and meet people. And like you said, they're all kind of places. 6 years ago, we went church sent us to the Grand Canyon anniversary. And no, I'm sorry, this was before that even. Sonora and I had driven to Mount Rushmore, and then we went up to Wyoming to Devil's Tower. And so we get back, and I go in on a Monday, and there's a guy there who's traveling, he and his wife. He gets sick, and he ends up in the hospital. And he's from Gillette, Wyoming. Well, on the way to Devil's Tower, you see, Gillette, you know. So I said, I was just up your way. And so we had a chance to talk. He said, well, what are you doing up there? I said, Devil's Tower. I said, yeah, that's on the way. So you get a chance to talk and, you know, make a connection. Because, I mean, that's like saying, me being in the hospital and saying, Hartford Road in Baltimore, I know what that is, you know. And I'm going, what do you do? But that gives you an opportunity to start a conversation. And who knows how God's going to use those things. You know, you might say something to a guy today that God will use 6 months from now. But for me, you know, the job is to go, and so I have to deliberately make that opportunity to go, and that's a great place for me to do it at, where I enjoy doing it.
We all are in that same place. I mean, every person is in that same. We become comfortable with the where we're surrounded, and I think it's really important to make ourselves uncomfortable.
Right. And
I think oftentimes we think, oh, we're going to stand on the corner and preach.
Right.
Well, it's maybe more, and maybe that's easier than talking to the person that you know, care about.
Having stayed on stand on a corner, stood on a corner and preached using, you know, illustrations and stuff on sketchboard.
Yeah.
It is easier. Well, you know.
Because your assumption is that they're not going to accept it.
Right.
And so it's easy. You put that in your mind.
Yep.
It's hard to talk to a family member who you know doesn't believe.
Yep.
And you go through that, and you're afraid of the rejection.
Yeah.
You're afraid of them judging what you believe. You're afraid of them not accepting you, and probably even more afraid of them not accepting Christ.
Right.
And so then you just don't do it. It's easier to go out and talk to other people.
Yep. And, you know, we're in this series, Jesus said what? And all throughout it, he's making you uncomfortable. You know, the stuff he keeps calling us to do makes us uncomfortable. You got to love me more than your parents. You got to be willing to sacrifice for me. You got to be willing to suffer for me. You know, all that stuff makes you uncomfortable. And yet, you know, in America, we kind of get comfortable in our Christianity in a lot of ways. Because, you know, I go to church. A lot of people in my neighborhood are Christians. You know, my kid plays on a team that's got a lot of people I know who are Christians, blah, blah, blah. And so we get kind of comfortable. Whereas the rest of the world are very uncomfortable. You know, even if you're in England, you know, England is pretty pagan.
Yeah.
You know, most of Europe is. So you're a Christian there, and you say something about it, you know, that could make you really uncomfortable in England. Canada is getting to be that way in a lot of ways that, you know, not really Christian friendly in some ways. So for us, we live in a very comfortable environment. Okay, somebody didn't like your opinion on whatever the subject was. You know, if you brought a Christian perspective, they didn't like it. Well, whoopee, you know, no big deal. Other places, I mean, that's a big deal.
You know, we make a different topic here, but we make a big point in our personal lives to have opinions. And oftentimes we take those opinions and we end up rubbing people the wrong way.
Right.
And so for those of the people who know me, am very opinionated, and it's a struggle for me not to share those opinions because I think they're interesting. I think it's interesting to debate them.
Sure, yeah.
But oftentimes that does more to cause people to be like, I have no interest in anything that he's saying.
Yep.
Than for me just to say, yeah, I'm more interested in listening to you.
Right.
Interested in listening to what you believe.
Yeah. And that's true of all of us. And that's probably why we like people who listen, you know, because you got an opinion, you want to get it out and hear somebody listening to it.
Yeah.
Rather than debating me about it.
And how much easier is it after you spend 20 minutes listening to somebody else's opinion for you to say, hey, can I share you why I believe in God?
Right. Yep.
The impact that he's had in my life.
You've earned it. in a lot of ways, because you have showed respect to theirs, whether you agreed with it or not. You showed respect to it, and you've given them a time to voice it.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, you've often opened that door where they'll listen to you.
And if you're thoughtful about the questions you ask while you're listening, you can steer somebody into them basically saying, you know what, I don't have a well-formed opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's a great question.
That's true.
You know, I do believe in the Big Bang. Okay, well, where did the molecules come from?
Right.
And listen intently.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people are, you know what, I actually just have to have faith that the molecules were there somehow. Mm-hmm. Well, here's what I believe. You know, I believe that God created those, and you know, you can go through that salvation story or the creation story or whatever story you want to go through. Mm-hmm. And share the gospel in a way that you wouldn't have been able to if you didn't take the time to show them that love and kindness.
I was watching a video last night. Never heard of this guy, but from what they said, it seems like he's passed away. But before he was a Christian, he said it was his favorite thing to destroy the faith of faith of Christians. And so he said he had a roommate who was reading the Bible, and short, I think, and he just lit into this guy and says, you know, that Bible of yours is really not reliable. And he started giving him all these reasons why it wasn't reliable. It was translated from this language to this language, da 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 da. And he said the guy, he thought it was going to be another one of those easy, I won, and the guy just closed the Bible up, listened to him, got done, and and he says, do you talk to your father? And this guy was Asian. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he was Indian, Pakistani, somewhere in that part of Asia. And he says, you talk to your father? Yeah. When you talk to him, do you talk to him in English? He says, no. He says, but if you were to sit down and translate that conversation into English, could you do it accurately? And he said, yes. He says, well, that's what's happened with the Bible. The guy says, man, he got me. You know? And it was just funny to listen because he had been so successful in just that basic argument of it's been translated from this to this. How can it be accurate? And yet he had to admit, we do that all the time. So,
which you would not have been able to do if the guy came back and said that at first.
Right.
But he was able to do it because he listened.
He listened, yeah.
He thought, and he responded. And how much better is that?
Yeah. And, this fly. I'm going to find that and send it to you. But it was just amazing that he did it so easy. He said the guy closed his Bible up, listened to him, and then boom, boom, just like that. And then 4 sentences or something like that, he had shut the guy down. And I don't know how, because he didn't go into how he ended up coming to Christ. But at some point, he ended up coming. And
you remember that seed.
Yeah. And in this conversation, he was talking to an audience somewhere. It looked like a church maybe. But he was just, recounting how when he was a non-Christian, this is what he used to do until he had this roommate who just totally shut him down. But like you said, he did it by listening first and listening to his argument, and then basically just making an argument based on, this guy's everyday experience with his father.
Yeah.
So it was crazy.
I feel inadequate a lot of times in having those conversations and being prepared for them and being equipped. And it causes me to want to read the Bible.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't know those things. But it also causes some doubt for me when sharing the gospel, especially with somebody who is confrontational.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I don't know that I can defend what I believe well enough.
Right. The other thing, bring him up, he's been in the news, and so he fits here. That was the thing about Charlie Kirk is that, I couldn't do that.
He was a Rolodex. Encyclopedia.
Yeah, he was. When we were in college, you had Christian service, and your first semester they roll you through a whole bunch of things, and one of them was campus ministry, like 15 minutes from the University of Maryland. So they take you over and dump you off, and you're supposed to talk to students. Well, the truth is, you could have got lost and, went and sat someplace or did anything. But yeah, I think most of us was conscientious enough to actually try to do what we were supposed to be there doing. I can't remember any real debating kind of conversations, just conversations. But his were literal debates. So he set up a tent and said, let's debate this thing. And
one of the things I appreciate about him, too, is when he was having the debate, and you can argue whether it was the right structure or not. The point is he's willing to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I really appreciate about him is whenever somebody else was talking, he took his mic and he laid it on the ground. Mm-hmm. And he waited until they were done talking.
Yep.
And we as believers so often, or maybe I should talk about myself, I so often want to defend my beliefs.
Right.
That I defend my beliefs and don't show the respect or kindness I should show to the people around me.
Or you're not listening, and we do this all the time. Instead of listening, you're formulating your argument, your comeback, instead of actually listening to me. They talk about, like, in counseling stuff, parrot things back. Okay, let me understand what you're saying, Caleb. You're saying blah, blah, blah. And so you could say, yes, that's exactly, or no, that's not what I'm saying. But we're usually just waiting to get back, all right, you're making your argument. I'm formulating mine. I'm not really paying attention. I'm just waiting for my comeback. And like you said, he would put that mic down and he would listen and then he would respond. And so I was like, hey, look, whatever your opinion may have been, you got to say, number one, man was bold to go do it. Number two, he was very respectful in doing it. And then number three, he was good at it, So.
I've listened to a lot of his stuff since he passed. I really didn't follow him prior to it. I can't see any of the stuff that I disagree with. He seems to be right on his theology on almost everything that I heard him talk about.
I'm trying to think who sent it to him. Maybe your dad. But a girl had on the shirt, Isaiah 6:8. Here am I, send me, like 7 is God saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us? And 6:8 says, here am I, send me. And he knew the Hebrew word. And he says that word is used here, in the Old Testament. And I was like, oh, that's impressive. To know that word and to remember where that word was used. That wasn't just something you heard parroted.
Yeah.
He studied that and learned that. And when he saw it on that shirt, he was able to immediately identify with that and say, okay, boom. And this was a young Christian girl, and I can't remember what her question was. Oh, yes, I do. I think she had unbelieving parents, and she was trying to figure out how to handle them. Not handle them, but how to respectfully live with them. And so he just told her, okay, you're living under their roof, blah, blah, blah. And he went through it, and I thought, can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But before he said any of that, he, again, looked at that shirt, saw Isaiah 6:8, knew the Hebrew word, knew where it was sent. It was used in different places.
Yeah.
With various prophets, and expounded that to her. And I was like, wow.
He said something I heard the other day that I disagree with completely. He said, or at least I heard it the other day. He said, you have to read 100 books a year.
Right.
I have trouble reading 2 books a year.
Yeah. I don't know how many I read, but it's nowhere near 100.
100 books if he was reading 100 books a year, no wonder he knew that stuff.
Yeah. If you read 100 books a year, you have accumulated a lot of knowledge. And the thing is, he was probably reading like a lot of us like to read people that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes they make great arguments.
Certainly do.
You go in, a lot of times I'm studying, I go look at something I know that I'm probably not going to agree with.
Yeah.
I'm not in this particular theological camp, but let's see what they have to say about this thing. The book of Revelation I have, you get a New Testament commentary set, and it's going to have Revelation in it. So, I don't know, get 4 of those, probably 5 of those. But then I've got either 8 or 9 separate little individual commentaries. And I shouldn't say individual commentaries about Romans, Revelation, and they come from various perspectives. So I read Lad says this. I read Newell says this. I read somebody else. He says something totally different. And, it's good because, why should you always, it doesn't really do you a lot of good to read just people you agree with or talk to people that you only agree with.
Well, those are disagreements amongst believers who would all agree are going to go to heaven one day.
Right, exactly.
And so there is a room for us to have disagreements inside of a church and do it in a way that says, I actually see it this way.
Right, yeah.
Or I actually see it this way.
Wednesday nights we do that. Passage might be this, and one guy says, I see it this way, and somebody else is, and to me,
that happened with, what was the passage? That David was reading it, and he read it as if he was down.
John, last week.
Yeah.
Thomas,
yes,
let us go with him that we may also die.
Yeah. Let us go so we also may die.
Yeah, and he read it like, let us, and so I remember your dad said, okay, David, now read it like you're excited to do it or something like that. But because the question was something like, is he being pessimistic or is that commitment?
Yeah.
Or is it both? A little pessimism, we're going to die if we go with him, but let's do it anyway. But also commitment where, what was the word? Philos, that deep, close friend. He's our philos, so let's go with him.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Wednesdays, is that we have that interaction and I see it like this, could it be this way, whatever. But we do it in a respectful manner, knowing all of us are believers, we're all going to get to heaven, but we may disagree on a point. If we could take that out of the room and into the world like that,
isn't that key though? And to tie everything up, the sermon was about love your enemies, and a lot of times we as Christians say love everybody, and that's what we're supposed to do, and we have this fairy tale sprinkles dust of love,
right,
and we as believers have disagreements with each other. How in the world are we going to have agreements with those in the public that don't agree?
Right.
And it's our job to do it with kindness.
Yeah.
To have those disagreements and those conversations with kindness. To have it through the lens of, what? Maybe I'm not right. Or maybe I'm right, but maybe I shouldn't share it in the way that I think I should.
Right. Kid, so it must have been 90. Summer of 90. I took my vacation. And I went to Trinity Seminary outside Chicago. Take summer school classes. So you're in school from like 8 to 5 or something like that, like all day. The guy teaching it was named Kevin J. Van Hooser. Christianity Today, my first year here, had an article. That was when Christianity Today was a whole lot more solid than it is now. But they had 5 theologians who were going to shape the next, millennia. And he was one of them. And so, you're going through and people like you're in the cafeteria or something. Who do you have? What class are you taking? I'm taking this. Who's teaching that? Van Hooser. It's either Van Hooser or Van Hoover, one of the two. But I said, oh man, he's great. Y'all gonna love him. And the guy he was incredible. And after that summer school class, he was going to either Oxford or Cambridge to teach there. So I'm like, whoa. But he said a statement that I've never forgotten. He said, you have to hold your theology with a certain amount of humility. Because the person who disagrees with you may hold his or hers just as sincerely as you do. And so it's like, well, that's true. Instead of pounding the table, I'm right. You can still maintain your belief, but respect that person's too. And I've never forgot that. Of course, I've never fully grasped putting it I hope my opinions with too much arrogance and too much pride. But it was a brilliant statement from a guy that influential. And now he's really become, there. It was just pretty much he was influential at that Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Now, throughout the evangelical world, that guy's, well known and well respected. But that was his opinion. Hold it with all sincerity, but hold it with certain humility. That number one, you could be wrong in some areas, and I think when we get to heaven, we're going to learn we're wrong in a lot of areas.
Yeah, hopefully we're right about the one.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's what's so important whenever we're talking amongst believers is that we go back to say, here's what we believe. Mm-hmm. This is the sound doctrine. There is no debate. There's no question. God sent his son to die on the cross for our sins, and he resurrected on the third day.
Yep.
And all the other stuff, although important, isn't worth splitting, isn't worth arguing,
right.
isn't worth... Right. It's worth debating, certainly.
Sure.
That's what we can do inside of a church. Outside the church, we need to share God's love. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I was reading today where Jesus sewed together a whip and started flipping over tables and clearing out the temple. And so sometimes it's not easy.
Right.
But also it can be done in love.
Yeah.
And compassion.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it compassionate and loving to let somebody stay in delusion? Rather than say and take the chance to say, well, here's what Scripture says about that. And to tell them lovingly, but you're wrong. How compassionate is it to let somebody walk down the road in the middle of the night, right down the middle of down the highway? That's pretty dangerous and uncaring, uncompassionate, if you ask me. Just and if somebody's in delusion or error in some way, it's not loving to let them stay in it. So you have to confront error, but it's the way you confront error. We've all been confronted about things before, and the ones you may remember the least are the ones who were compassionate in their confrontation.
Whenever people aren't compassionate in the way that they approach it, I think of we have young kids. Whenever I'm not compassionate the way I approach, they run towards the thing that they were doing. Mm-hmm. Whenever I'm compassionate about it, they feel accepted.
Right.
They feel like there's trust, and that's whenever they say, "You're right. I was doing wrong."
Right.
And how often is it that way in real life, whenever we're adults getting confronted about something we've been doing wrong, and if somebody does it without compassion, without kindness,
right,
we run right towards the thing we're supposed to not be doing.
Absolutely. We pride kicks in. How dare they tell me, whatever. I'm a grown man. I can do whatever I want to do. I'm an American. I'm free to, But when somebody does tell you something, compassion and kindness, you do think about it, and you do consider you might not necessarily change then, but you do think about it at least. And so, so Jesus left us on a knife edge. There's this tension we walk, and it's like, I got to stay right here. I can't go too far over here. I got to be confident in what I believe, but I can't be so confident that I fall off the edge of being compassionate at the same time, and that's tough. You think about all the tensions we have in life. Be holy in a dirty world. Be loving the people that are unloving. Speak the truth, but Paul says speak it in love. I mean, it's just he left us in a tough place.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, we're not alone because we have Spirit, but our job is not easy. It's easy if I don't do it. But
there is comfort. There is comfort, though, that you can have in knowing that your job is to go and create disciples, and your job is to plant seeds. Mm-hmm. Your job is to water them. Yep. But you cannot make them grow yourself.
Yep. And so, as you quoted Paul there, Paul says some water, some planted, some water, but God gives the increase. And so, once you take that off, I was having this conversation with somebody not long ago. Preachers have to come to this place where you realize that I can't save anybody. I can't get anybody to join this church. That's got to be God. When you finally get over that hump, then you can relax some. But until then, it's like you fail. Nobody got saved when I gave an invitation. I can remember in the old sanctuary, a guy had told me that day, me and my wife were going to join. And it was the old traditional Baptist invitation. And I'm standing there waiting for this guy to come. They didn't. And your grandpa knew because I had told him and, prayed because they said, and he didn't come. And he says, your face dropped. That's because I felt that internal pressure that, I have to have. Now it's like, not my job. My job is to present truth, to feed the flock every time I preach and to present truth and, present the gospel in that. And if God brings somebody to him through that, praise him. That's his job. If somebody walks out going, whatever, I've still done my job. So, but it lets that pressure off you. But we feel that way for a lot of reasons, But once you get that off your head that, I can't do it. That's God's job.
Well, the key word there is I. Because whenever you're doing something and you're saying I, there's so much pride there.
Yep.
That it's my job to make sure that they come to know God. It's my job. I am in control. I do this.
Yeah.
And we end up getting so discouraged because it's not I. Mm-hmm. It's not about you. Mm-hmm. And whenever you wake up and you don't think about I,
right,
it's amazing what God can do in your life.
Well, you talk about our job to go. If I just realize it's my job to go, not to get results, but to go, it takes the pressure off it.
It's like standing on the corner and preaching. Takes I'm not saying that's the right way to spread the gospel.
Sure, yeah, but
there's no pressure because it's like nobody's gonna get saved from this anyways.
Right. And the funny thing is, nobody really knows what God's doing. I hear different guys, and I've heard guys different times right on the corner by Sherwin-Williams. There have been guys standing out there preaching, and it's like, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. Well, you are going to hell if you don't trust Christ as Savior. But is that the most effective way to present that message? I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not, because most people just turn it off. Crazy people in the corner. Yeah. You may as well have the sign up, the end is near. The one you see in comics and all that stuff. But at the same time, none of us really know if God won't take that even and use it. But
He might.
But if we go, if that's on your job, at school, at the hospital, on your team, if you go with the idea that when I get the opportunity, what I'm doing, I'm going to try to represent Christ in, and show Christian character, whatever, while I'm doing it. And then if I get a verbal opportunity to share, then I'll do that. And if you go with that attitude, no pressure on you. Mm-hmm. And who knows what God's going to do through that. So it's like, hey. So it is, again, that tension that he left us in. But at the same time, he didn't leave us alone in it because he said, confidently, that is his spirit. His spirit brings people to faith. His spirit uses his word. So if we rely on that and go, my job is to simply either act Christian or present the message of Christ, his spirit's job is to do the rest. Yeah. It takes tons of pressure off. It takes tons. Which is why, again, if I wrap it back around and go back to the hospital, I enjoy it because I walk in the room and I know I'm here to represent the hospital from their perspective, but Christ from the alternate perspective. And if they say, come on in, if they say, no, I'm good, no skin off my teeth, off my back. And again, from the hospital's perspective, we've reached out, we've tried to provide that service to you.
Sure.
So we're doing our job. And from mine, it is, I went and tried to present to you in some way, if it's just me being there, Christ. Yeah. So if I keep that in mind, no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
No pressure. I think a lot of things I find more intimidating than that. So,
well, let's wrap it with that. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today. If you guys have made it to the end of this and are looking for a church, Rehoboth is every Sunday. We have service starting at 11. If you don't live in Kirksville, find a church. Comment below. We'll be happy to get you plugged in someplace.